The third part of Basil Valentinus. His Last Testament. Treating of the universal work in the whole world, with a perfect declaration of the 12 keys, wherein is significantly expressed the name of the great matter. There is an elucidation also of all his former writings, published for the good of the posterity, and such, that are lovers of wisdom. London. Printed by S. G. and B. G. for Edward Brewster, at the Crane in St. Paul's Churchyard, 1670. The third part. Is. A declaration of the 12 keys. Here followeth the third part of my intended writings, wherein is truly shewed the original and prime matter of our philosophic stone, which is a perfect instruction to the practick part, which sheweth the direct way to the inexhaustible fountain of health, and of the abundance of riches to provide for man's necessaries. And this is a declaration of my former writings, which is left for a love token to all those that are lovers of philosophy. My friend, you must note, that by this intended work touching the minerals, I had reason to prefix the two parts of minerals, and metals, and their ores, holding it a necessity to hold forth a light unto the ignorant, how that one Spirit from above frameth all such ores, metals, and minerals, taking their original underground for to generate thereby. For earth is always ready and covetous to attract and to retain that Spirit, which proceedeth from heaven's powers, which it persenteth in process of time in a formality and perfection. The manner of it hath been spoken of sufficiently in my former writings, which is the reason why I give only hints of them in this place. Note, that all things proceed from a heavenly influence, elemental operation, earthly substance. From this mixture arise the four elements, water, air, earth, which engender by the help of fire hid therein, in a warm digestion, producing a soul, spirit, and body. These are the three prime principles, which in a coagulation come to a mercury, sulfur, and salt. These three being in conjunction, according to the nature of the seed, produce a perfect body, be it in the kingdom either of minerals, animals, or vegetables. All things in the world, that are visible and palpable, are divided into these three kingdoms: the animal, which contains such that have a lively breath, composed of flesh and blood, as men, beasts, worms, fishes, fowls. The vegetables, which contains trees, herbs, seeds, roots, fruits, and all such things that are of a growing quality. The minerals contains all manner of ores, metals, minerals, marcasits, calves, zinc, lowballs, all sorts of flints, pebbles, bismuths, stones, precious ones, and others. Animals have their special seed, a spermatic substance, which after a copulation generate flesh and blood, which seed is their prima materia, from a heavenly influence, created by God of the four elements, wrought by nature, which formerly were quoted in my writings. Vegetables also have their proper seed, which God bestowed on them, according to their several qualities and form by a heavenly and sidereal influence, and receive their elemental fruitful growing from the earth, with an order, thereby to generate and augment. Minerals and metals also have their original seed from God, by the heavens' influence in a liquid aerial substance, by a mineral spirit, sulphureous soul, and earthly salt in one body joined. Of these I have spoken in my former writings. Note further, if any of these metal line and mineral kinds shall be brought to a farther propagation and augmentation, it must be reduced to its first seed and prima materia. If you will transmute metals, augment them, bring them into a tincture, or philosophic stone, you must first understand how you may destroy by a spagyric art the metal line and mineral form and separate it into a mercury, sulfur, and salt. These three must be purely separated, and brought to their first principles. This separation is done in, and by a mercurial spirit, sulphureous soul, and a white salt. These three in a due ordering of a true manual must be joined again, that they may be brought to the highest and most perfect purity. In which conjunction must exactly be observed the quantity. After this conjunction the whole substance is merely a liquid substance and philosophic water, in which all the elements, first the heavenly, then the elemental, and lastly the earthly qualities are shut up and lie hid therein. For the mercurial spirit is cold and moist, the sulphureous soul is warm and dry, and this liquor is the true prima materia, and first seed of metals and minerals, which by Vulcan's art is brought to a plusquam perfection, into a transcendent fixed medicine, out of which is generated the true philosophic stone, and must be produced in that way. Therefore observe and take notice, that all metals and minerals have only one root, from which generally their descent is. He that knoweth that rightly, needs not to destroy metals, to extract the spirit from one, the sulfur from a second, and the salt from a third. For there is a nearer place yet, in which these three, spirit, soul, and body lie hid in one thing, well known, and may with great praise be gotten. It shall be nominated afterward in several terms. He that learneth to know exactly this golden seed, or this magnet, and searcheth throughly into its properties, he hath then the true root of life, and may attain unto that, his heart longeth for. In my former writings, as also in the 12 keys, from the first to the last, I ordered thus my style in writing, wherein I held forth unto posterity the practick, how the great stone of philosophers, or the best purified gold may be made out of sulfur and salt, with the help of the spirit of mercury, which must be drawn from a crude unmelted Mineira, according to the tenor of my 5th key set down in a parabolical manner. First key. Why I did the work of the philosophic stone upon the gold metal. This is the reason that the simple laborators, to whom is unknown the other body, or subjectum, which containeth all the three principles, though it be a thing well known, yet is it a stranger to their brains, may learn hereby more wit and knowledge. Many of the ancient philosophers, which lived long before me, have in the same manner with me obtained the true universal stone of all mysteries and health, as their books, which are extant, give evidence thereof. The first time I took great pains and was at great expenses, and consumed much time about the purified gold, all edged in the first key. This heavenly stone I prepared in the cloister I lived in, and happily obtained it. The highest in heaven bestowed his further grace and blessing upon me, that I took into further consideration the tinging animated spirits placed and planted into their several bodies. Let no man be ashamed to learn, to add more to his learning, and to dive further into that, which was hid from him, notwithstanding his knowing ways. Nature reserveth many things in her secrecy, which men's dull understanding and shortness of life cannot reach unto. Whereas God in his great goodness hath bestowed this great gift upon me, for an improvement of that talent, I have imparted the same to my fellow Christians in the said 12 keys. Those that are endued with deeper wits and knowledge, and in their hearty and careful endeavors strive further to dive in the art, will meet in the same place with a more easy and more known matter, which almost was named and set down, of an effectual quality, out of which in like manner, as the ancients before me, in their exact speculation and practick have in the end better known the only scope and drift, which hath been practiced several times by me also, in a shorter time, and less pains. Taking, both they and I have obtained health and riches. In this known and despicable matter and mineral substance is found a sulfur and tincture more effectual, and more worthy, than the best gold can afford, which is fluid and open, and its mercurial spirit also, and its mystical salt is free and open, whose virtues may with less pains in a visible manner be drawn from it. He that hath considered exactly my 12 keys, frequently perusing the same, must needs conceive, and that therein is held forth the whole preparation of our stone, from the beginning to the end, without any defect, yet so that it only should be prepared of gold fitted for it. But we, according to God's ordinance in nature, have pointed at a gold, which is much better, and requireth to be taken into a deep consideration, which being unknown and strange to novices, for some reasons I forbear to give them any direction thereunto, with a resolution to write and to point at such matters, as themselves are inclined to seek for their seed in them. At the beginning of my 12 keys, according to the manner of philosophers, in a parabolical way I made relation of the property and work of our stone and balsam, how it was made by artists, which as by an inheritance is come to me also, wherein I spoke as much as was meet of the government of the fire, chargeable appearance, and of the chiefest planetical colors, and the final end thereof. After the accomplishment of these peruse well the 12 keys, for each containeth a particular work. The first key informeth you, that if you seek for the seed in a metalline body, as in the gold, then before all things it must most exactly be purged from all its impure leprosy, and that nothing must be mixed with our fountain, but such, which is of a pure spermatical quality. This purifying is performed with antimony, which stands in a near relation, and affinity unto gold, which is the reason, why antimonial sulfur purgeth the soul of gold, graduating the same to a very high degree. On the other side, the gold can meliorate in a short time the soul of antimony, and can bring it to a firm fixation, exalting antimony and gold to an equal dignity and virtue, and can be brought not only unto a white metal of lune, but also to a transcendent medicine for man's health, of which you shall have a further direction hereafter, when I shall treat in particular of antimony. Although antimony hath promised unto Saturn a sociable brotherhood, because antimony's qualification doth rest in some sort on the quality of Saturn in an equal concordance, yet after the fixation of the exalted sulfur of antimony, his next friend Saturn cannot get any prey from him, because the king received him into his golden palace, and make him partaker of his triumphing kingdom. This is the reason why he can endure now heat and frost, and overcomes it, and standeth with the king a conqueror in great and transcendent glory. The purifying of the gold is performed thus. Laminate the gold thinly, after a due manner, cast it thrice through antimony, afterward the regulus which is set at the through casting must be melted before the blast in a strong fire, and driven off with Saturn, then you will find the purest, fairest, most lustrous gold, pleasant to behold, as much as the luster of soul is. This gold is now fitted to surrender its innermost, being first brought from its fixedness into a destructive form, and passed through the salt sea of its corruptibleness, is drowned therein, escaped again, and appeareth visibly. The second key. My friend, note, and take that into a serious consideration, because the chiefest point lieth herein, cause a balneum be made, let nothing come into it, which should not be there, that the noble seed of the gold fall not into a destructive and irrecoverable opposition after its destruction, and take an exact and careful view of such things, which my second key informeth thee of, namely what matter you ought to take to the king's balneum, whereby the king is destroyed, and its external form broken, and its wounded soul may come forth. To this purpose will serve the dragon and the eagle, which is nitre and soul armoniac, both which after their union are made into a aqua forte, as you shall be further informed of in my manuals, where I shall treat in particular of gold, of other metals and minerals, into which balneum the king is thrown, being first, as in the quoted place you shall hear, brought into an amalgama of mercury and of sulfur, which presently seizeth on him, corrodeth all his members, and is dissolved, and is presently mortified of this salt water into a most splendent transparent oil. You must note, that this dissolution is not sufficient, and the king is not minded as yet to let go his soul out of his fixed body, which you can see when you separate the water from the dissolved body of the king, where you shall find fixed powder of gold, out of which you will hardly get his soul that is therein. Therefore follow my counsel and bear the yoke, which I bore before you, and learn to know exactly in pains taking, further thus, as I shall inform you. Having dissolved your gold wholly in the said water, and brought it into a pleasant yellow oil, then let it stand well luted for a day and night in a very gentle balneum mariae. The feces which are set lead, must be separated from it, then take this pure dissolution, put it into a well-coated body, or retort, apply a helmet to it, with a receiver, in the best manner luted to it, set it into a sand capel, drive the gold with the water over the helmet, iterate this a third time, then abstract the water in balneum mariae, you will find a fair gold powder. Keep this in a glass for an hour in fire, let the remaining humidity be drawn from it. The third key. Then take of good spirit of salt nitre 1 part, and of deflemmed spirit of ordinary salt, 3 parts, pour these spirits together warmed a little, into a body on the forewritten gold powder, lute a helmet and receiver to it, drive the gold over as formerly in sand several times with an iterated distillation, the oftener the better, let the gold come to be volatile more and more, and at last let all come over. By this repeated driving over, its fixed body is divided, all its members are torn asunder and opened, and leaveth willingly its soul to a special judge, of which my third key will give sufficient information. Note further, that after this work those salt spirits must be abstracted from the gold, which was driven over, very gently in balneo mariae, let nothing of the tincture of the gold come over, that the body suffer not any diminution. Then take that gold, or rather these crystals of gold, from which you have separated the water, put it in a reverberating pan, set it under a muffle, let its first fire be gentle for an hour, let all its corrosiveness be taken away, then your powder will be of a fair scarlet color, as subtle as ever was seen, put it in a clean vial, pour on it fresh spirit of ordinary salt, first brought to a sweetness, let it stand in a gentle digestion, let that spirit be deeply tinged and transparent, red like a ruby, cant it off, pour on fresh, extract again, iterate the work of canting off and pouring on, till no more tincture of it appeareth, put all these extractions together, separate them in balneo gently from the sulfur of soul, then that powder is subtle and tender, of great worth, this matter is such, which in a short process transmuteth lune in its tincture to the highest perfection, according to the direction of my 12 keys. He that hath some knowledge herein, may make this queer, whether this extracted dry soul and sulfur of the king be just that soul, of which philosophers have this saying, the philosophic work for the preparation of the most precious stone requireth 3 things, viz. A wet volatile mercury, or a mercurial spirit, a wet volatile sulphureous soul, and a dry astral salt, which after its dissolution together with the 2 first must be apparent and known in a waterish form, which way comes that about, because in this process nothing is spoken of any mercurial spirit and volatile soul, but the soul of the king appeared in a subtle form of powder. The answer hereunto I delay so long till the querist learns better to understand the distinction in this book, and I will perform my promise, and set his anxious and entangled mind at liberty, which is so much troubled about this doubt, and will deal with him as a good father may deal with his son, in and with this scope, wherein our mastery leath, have been fooled most of the wits, leading them captive in their erroneous ways, being led about in a desart of mislead ways, because in their supposed deep wits, they had not conceived so much of the manner, how all things of the world are generated, and that every spirit must have a soul and every soul a fit spirit, and that both spirit and soul are spirits and spiritual, which must have a body, in which they may have a dwelling. Gold and silver, but chiefly gold is brought to the highest fixedness, by such degrees as nature did afford, insomuch its nature is found very hot and fiery, freed from all phlegmatic humidity, of which lune is not so wholly freed, though she hath obtained a sulphur-fixed degree, and stayeth for the king, to warm her cold body with his hot seed, which concerns the particulars, and belongs unto them, which in that place shall be plainly demonstrated. In gold there is no waterish humidity at all, unless it were reduced again into vitriol, which would be but an useless and unprofitable work, and would require huge expenses, in case the philosopher's stone should be of vitriol of gold, of which there must be had great store. Indeed in that vitriol there would be found a convenient spirit, which nature would desire, of a white quality, as also a soul and salt of a glorious essence. But what countries, goods, lands, have been dilapidated this way, I waive to discourse of only, this warning I give to my disciples, nature having left a nearer way to keep and to imitate that they also might take heed to fall into such extreme and inextricable poverties. The solar mercury soul, being never brought so far unto destruction, neither did the ancient philosophers ever make use of that way, as being a thing clean contrary unto nature, conteneth indeed in humidity, but it is a mere elemental waterish humidity after its dissolution, and good for nothing. Water and other principles do not stand in the elements, but the elements rest in the principles and seeds of metals, of the which I have spoken formerly. Therefore let none be so over-witty, as to make our stone only of dry and fully digested gold, because its phlegmatic humidity is entreed into a dry fixedness and fixed coagulation, which is not found so in other metals, though they also are subject to a hard coagulation and pass through the fire, yet are not wholly digested, nor brought to a full maturity from the natural original root, which ought to be taken notice of, and be not offended at my former writings if they seem to run contrary against this. Though I have shewed, that the spirit, soul, and body come all from one metal-line essence, and must be prepared thus, among which I held the gold to be the best, however I dealt herein as it seemed fit for a philosopher, the like the ancient philosophers have done before me, but I hope you took notice of my protestation, that I gave special cause thereby to your speculation, to take the better notice of nature and her principle, and to consider the original, because it was not meet for me to inform all men, how the doors are bolted within, and especially at that time, when I never intended to write thus plainly of these things, which are hid even from the best of men, but when my heavenly Prince commanded, at the changing of my mind, not to bury the imparted talent, but to do the like to those, whom God thinks worthy, to leave it to them. One rule more I must put to thy remembrance, of such points, which formerly I have set down, of which I spoke now, that you may the less blame me, as if I did refuse these things now, which I formerly wrote of. Peruse all such which since the beginning of the world have written of metals, you will find, that they were all of one mind, and that I make use of their sayings, that the first and the last metal is a metal, because the first metal hath already obtained, and gotten the forthgoing seed of metals in a metal-line quality, which doth nothing else, but that it goeth on incessantly in the metal-line generation, as I spoke of in the first and second part of minerals and metals, and in this part also. I have spoken of it in several places. Many have called gold lead, and lead they called gold, because it was found not only of the same ponderousness, but because 3 deep glittering stones have solely gotten from this planet their transcendent perfection, and many other causes besides, which to relate here, would fall too long and needless. And this is it which asketh wisdom to distinguish in this and in other things, and exactly to search into God's mysteries, and natures laid before us. But man through Adam's fall being brought to a deep blindness, therefore men's understanding are so eclipsed, that they can hardly conceive of this, and of other mystical matters in nature. The obduration being so great among the covetous, that for the most part they search and dive into such mysteries out of mere covetousness, pride, and ambition, made the ancient philosophers upon command and inspiration of the highest aim at that, as to put a certain stay to their hands, and to write of such mysteries in such a manner, that unworthy men should not understand it, and but worthy men only in their illumination might perceive it, and writing often one thing, have mingled other among, understanding still the one and the same. In several places they shewed, that the philosopher's stone is, and comes from an animal, others from a vegetable seed, and a third sort saith, it comes from a mineral seed, others write that stone is made of an animal, vegetable, and mineral seed together. All this is only understood of the mineral and metal-line seed, and consisteth not in any plurality of seeds. Hence this art grew eclipsed, insomuch that scarce one among many thousands hardly attaineth unto the knowledge thereof, and for that reason is it held for an art, because not every dunce should bring it into his beetle head, and why should it? For if this art were as common as brewing of beer, and baking of bread, then any one may judge what good could be looked for. Would not all manner of vices be practiced publicly without any controlling? Therefore such men, which in their lofty mind are merely for pomp and pride, must be clipped in their wings, and these things ought not to be put into their mouths. Things are clear enough for these, on whom God intends the bestowing of them. I return now to the thing I intended, which is to teach a desirous scholar, how to proceed further with the extracted soul of gold. Truly it is much to discover such mysteries. I warn every one to make good use of them, and note, that if you have the purple mantle of soul, as the sulfur of soul, then be thankful unto God for it, bear no evil mind against thy neighbor, unlock your golden seed according to the tenor of the key, turn it to water, for in our art there must be body, soul, and spirit, which run together in the innermost root, the one layeth hold on the other and meliorateth the same throughout in its whole quality, insomuch that there is a new created world and earth, which afterward is illuminated by the soul, and is exalted into a transcendent efficacy. Therefore it is requisite that you know, how to infuse your golden seed into the new body, and to bring it to a fluid substance. Look about thee, and see where you may find it. If you find none, despair not, but be of good comfort, think upon means, and ask counsel of God Saturn. He will not let thee go without a resolve. He will put into thy hand a deep glittering Monera for an offering, which in his mind is grown of the first matter of all metals. If this Monera after its preparation, which he will shew unto thee, is set into a strong sublimation, mixed with 3 parts of bole, or tile meal, then riseth to the highest mount a noble sublimate, like little feathers, or a lumen plumosum, which in due time dissolveth into a strong and effectual water, which bringeth thy seed in a little putrefaction very suddenly into the first volatility, if so be there be added to it a due quantity of water, that it may be dissolved therein. There the twig with the bulk doth unite, that they are able to ascend above the highest mountain, and stay inseparably together a soul and spirit, or a spirit and soul. It is requisite, that you be stored with water for the body or salt to dissolve the same also, and coagulate the same into a new clarified body, which will never part asunder, neither in love nor woe, because they are of one nature, nativity, and original, and have been so from the beginning. For they all have their beginning and birth from the power of this volatile bird. But remember well that these mineral spirits are in other metals also, and are found effectual in one mineral, from whence with more ease and less charges it may be had. The business is only herein, that you learn to know, what this mercurial spirit, mercurial soul, and astral salt is, that the one may not be taken instead of the other, which would cause a huge error. You will find, that the nature of the golden sulfur consisteth only in all metals, which are comprehended among the red, and have a fellow dominion with other minerals, by reason of the fiery tinging spirits, but the magnetic power and its quality resteth in its white mercurial spirit, which bindeth the soul, and dissolveth the body. Therefore the astrum of soul is found not only in gold, that with the addition of the spirit of mercury and the solar salt only the philosopher's stone could be made, but may in like manner be prepared artificially out of copper and steel, two immature metals, both which as male and female have red tinging qualities, as well as gold itself, whether the same be taken out of one alone, or out of both, being first entreed into an union. Besides, this mineral in our mother's tongue is a mineral, called copper water, and of broken, or digged verdigris, or copper, there can be made a vitriol, in all which is found gloriously a soul of the best gold, and come well to pass very profitably many ways. No country clown can believe it. Therefore note here, what you ought to observe, intend thy thoughts, and give not over, unless you become so far, that you know nature's mystical conjunction and her dissolution, then you will find, what is requisite for you to know, and return thanks unto thy Creator, make use of it for his glory, and be beneficial to the needy. This white spirit is the true mercury of philosophers, which hath been before me, and will be after me, without which the philosopher's stone, and the great mystery cannot be made, neither universally nor particularly, much less a particular transmutation. And this spirit is the key to the opening of all metals, and their locking in again. This spirit is associable unto all metals, because they have their descent from its sanguinity, as you heard often. For it is that true primum mobile, sought of many thousands, and found by few, and yet all the world is greedy of it, is sought afar off, and found near at hand. It is and moveth before the eyes of all men, for if this spirit be fed with a metal-lined sulfur and salt, of these three there will be one matter made, not much unlike to the philosopher's great stone, however duly must it be proceeded in, and a true process from the beginning to the end must be observed, for this corporal salt must be dissolved into this spirit, dissolved, turned, and brought into its prima materia, as the spirit himself is. Then both these of one equal descent and birth by means of fire with coagulating of the spirit may be generated a third time to a firm fixation, and to a pure transparent white clarified body. Then after this accomplished albedo the soul, which is dissolved, must seek for her rest again, penetrate such a pure body, unite with the same, and rise her dwelling therein, that these three be permanent, and abiding constantly in one body eternally clarified. And that you may be informed, how in this manner both your dissolved seeds, as the spirit of mercury, and the soul of the gold be made again fix and corporeal, note that it is done only by the proper salt of soul, which in this art is called a body. Now observe here, that you take no heterogeneal thing instead of it. What manner of process is here used, read my fourth key, where the truth of it is held forth with singular examples, and proofs, but you are specially to observe, in case you do not understand that key, this plain and true information, look upon the body of gold, not as if no other benefit could be reaped of it, but only his soul, not so, impute no such weakness unto that body, but after you have drawn forth its sulfur, there is yet in it the salt of glory, and the triumphant victrix, without which your spermatic seed cannot be brought unto any coagulation. And even this salt now, of which I made so long a discourse, how you ought to bring it out of its corporeal form through means of the spirit of mercury into its prima materia, is afterward turned again into a deeply purified and exalted body. Therefore take your solar earth, out of which you drew your seeds, or the true lion's blood, and reduce it by reverberating to a fixed powder, and subtle impalpable ashes, extract from thence a very subtle salt, as bright as ivory is. Hereafter I will teach you in the manuals, how the body of soul is anatomized by the particulars, and to bring it into a sulfur, salt and mercury. Then proceed unto the practick and conjunction, and have a care, that you be provident therein, that at their conjunction you do not too much to the one, nor too little to the other. take notice of the quantity, and observe exactly the division of the seeds, hereunto minister a certain measure, and mark my 6th key, then proceed in the begun process, according to the order of the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th keys. As formerly I had informed you about it, go on with it to the appearance of the king's honor and glory, to his highest purple garment, and pure golden peace, is called the triumphing Lord and Conqueror over all his subjects, from the east to the west, which if you have attained unto them return thanks to God, be fervent in praying, be mindful of the poor, be a student unto sobriety, temperance, abstinence, and above all unto taciturnity, for it is the greatest and most heinous sin, to let unworthy men know of it. The augmentation of this heavenly stone, as also the fermentation, is needless to be spoken of in that place, as being described in my 2 last keys, and held forth to the full, not doubting if God grants so much blessing, and imparteth this stone, the sense of these 2 keys will be more conceived of, for no heterogeneal things must be brought to our metal-line substance, neither at the beginning, middle, or end, but the mercurial spirit, and the digested medicine, spoken of in my 11th key. To be further as good as I promised, concerning other things, quoted in my keys, know ye, that no philosopher is tied wholly unto the metal of gold, of which I spoke largely hitherto, and described the true fundamentals thereof, and as you heard afore, the whole mystery lieth herein, viz. in the tinging of red fiery spirits of metal-lined souls, and all what is tinged red, and is known to have a fierce sulfur, all such are kind to the solar astrum, and when the mercurial spirit is joined with, then the proceedings may go on universally divides turn particularator, that a tincture be obtained from them, whereby metals and vulgar mercury can be exalted, and be ordered according to the tenor of the process. Such souls and goldish sulfurs are found most effectual in Mars and Venus, as also in vitriol, and both Venus and Mars can be reduced into most effectual vitriol, in which metal-line vitriol afterward all the 3 principles, as mercury, sulfur, and salt are found under one heaven, and with little pains and short time each can be taken out of it apart, as you shall hear, when I shall make further relation of the mineral vitriol, which is digged in Hungary, of a high gradation. Now if you have wit and understanding, and art inclined and heartily desireth to conceive of the true meaning of my keys, and of my other writings, thereby to unlock the locks of metals for our use, then you should have taken notice and observed, that in all these I have written not only of the metal of soul, of its sulfur and salt, but have interlined and mingled also, and made universal other red metals, from whence may be had the mystical mastery. Therefore men ought to iterate often the reading of philosophic books, then a true sense and meaning may be drawn from them, which without divine illumination cannot be neither, and see. But hoping that though use, who are fully and really resolved to incline their hearts unto wisdom will give more attention thereunto, than other mad worldlings, for whom these my writings were not intended, for I spoke as plainly as ever possibly I could, and this kindled light shall further be purified, so that true and sincere novices may have a full light without an eclipse from their beginning to their ending. To which end I took these pains to disclose that, which all the world was silent in, and concealed it to their last end, and buried it in silence to their very graves. The scope I aimed at in so doing, was not to hunt after any vain glory, but rather, that God's gracious provident goodness might be held forth unto posterity, that the future ages might become seeing, and some of the posterity's eyes might be kept open, and be helpful unto their needy fellow artist, and make them partakers of God's graces and gifts. Though my mind be mightily perplexed, when I think on what I have done, because I write so plainly, not knowing into whose hands after my departure these my writings may come, however, I hope, let them be what they will, that they will remember, and lay to heart my faithful writings inserted in my former and these present writings, that they deal with this book, and use it so, that they may give good account for it to Almighty God. Touching further the vitriol, I should make mention of it in my manuals, where I treat and write generally of minerals, but it being such a singular mineral, whose fellow whole nature doth not produce, besides, vitriol before all others is of great affinity unto metals, and is next kin unto them, for out of all metals there can be made a vitriol, or crystal, and vitriol is taken for one. Therefore I would not bereave it of its own praise, and put its commendation too far off, but rather prefer it, as there is just cause, before other minerals, and the first place, next to metals should be given unto it, for, setting aside all metals and minerals, this is sufficient to make the philosopher's stone of it, which no other in the world can do the like, though some particularitor are a help to further that work, and antimony alone is a sufficient master hereunto, as in its due place more shall be spoken of. However, none is thus much dignified in its worthiness, that the said philosophic stone could be made of it as this vitriol is. Therefore ancient philosophers have concealed this mineral as much as ever they could, and would not reveal the same to their own children, that they should not divulge it in the world, but be kept secret, though they published, that such preparation is made out of one thing, and out of one body, which hath the nature of soul and lune, and containeth also the mercury, wherein they said true enough, because it is so. But here I must admonish you, that you may turn this argument, and settle your thoughts wholly upon metalline vitriols, because I entrusted you, that out of Venus and Mars there can be made an excellent vitriol, wherein are found the three principles for the generation of our one. But you must further note also, that nevertheless these three metals, as spiritus, anima, corpus are buried and hid in a mineral vitriol, as in a mineral itself. Understand this according to the distinct natures of vitriol. For the best, which according to my experience shewed itself most effectual, herein is that which is broken, and digged in Hungary, of very deep degree of tincture, not very unlike unto a fair blue sapphire, having very little of humidities, and other additionals, or strange ores. The oftener it is dissolved and coagulated, the more is it exalted in its deep tinging color, and is beheld with great admiration. This high graduated vitriol is found crude in those places, where gold, copper, iron, is broken and digged, and is abundantly transported from thence into foreign parts, insomuch that sometimes there is great scantness of it in those parts and elsewhere. Though the vulgar people can afford no better name to it, calling it only a copper water, however, ancient philosophers by reason of its unspeakable virtue and dignity extolled it, and called it vitriolum, for that reason, because its spiritual oil containeth all the three principles of the triumphing qualities. If you get such deep graduated and well-prepared mineral, called vitriol, then pray to God for understanding and wisdom for your intention, and after you have calcined it, put it into a well-coated retort, drive it gently at first, then increase the fire. There comes in the form of a wit spirit of vitriol in the manner of a horrid fume or wind, and cometh into the receiver as long as it hath any such material in it. And note, that in this wind are invisibly hid all the three principles, and come together out of that dwelling. Therefore it is not necessary to seek and search always in precious things, because by this means there is a nearer way open unto nature's mysteries, and is held forth to all such, which are able to conceive of art and wisdom. Now if you separate and free this expelled spirit well and purely per modum distillationis, from its earthly humidity, then in the bottom of the glass you will find the treasure, and fundamentals of all the philosophers, and yet known to few, which is a red oil, as ponderous in weight as ever any lead, or gold may be, as thick as bloude, of a burning fiery quality, which is that true fluid gold of philosophers, which nature drove together from the three principles, wherein is found a spirit, soul, and body, and is that philosophic gold, saving one, which is its dissolution, during the fire, and not subject to any corruptibleness, else it fleeth away with body and soul, for neither water nor earth can do it any hurt, because it receiveth its first birth and beginning from a heavenly water, which in due time is poured down upon the earth. In these together driven goldish waters lieth hid that true bird and eagle, the king with his heavenly splendor together with its clarified salt, which three you find shut up in this one thing and golden property, and from thence you will get all that, which you have need of for your intention. Therefore set that golden body you have obtained, which in dignity and virtue is exalted beyond all other gold, into its due and lawful dissolution, its due time, then the angel of the highest will appear unto thee, and tell thee that it is the sepulchre of all the mysteries in the world. Receive it with joy and keep it safe, for its quality is more heavenly than earthly, therefore doth it heartily incline to strive after that, which is above, from whence it had its original. If you have separated this prophet from his matter which remained, then you need not to undertake any further process, you were taught parabolically in my 12 keys. For even in his remaining formal substance you may find, and expect from thence a pure immortal soul, together with the glory of the salt, both which are obtained by means of the Spirit, and must be had from thence, and no impure, or contrary thing must be added thereunto. And it is done in the same manner as I told you in my keys, with the soul and salt of the gold by the Saturnial water, in whose place this spiritual mercurial spirit might be used with better advantage. Observe only this difference, that the salt must be drawn forth from the mercurial body, as it happened unto the soul, with the spirit of mercury, whereas on the other side the salt of gold must not be drawn forth with the Saturnal water, because it is too weak for the body of gold, but with a water, which hath been expressed in the description of particulars. This distinction must be exactly observed, being of great concernment, because the salt of vitriol is not so strongly guarded, and is not in so fixed a body, as the gold is, but is still an open body, which saw no coagulation as yet, nor passed it through any melting fire, therefore that body never came as yet to any compactness, there is room left for its own spirit to enter into, embrace, and unite with its like, and a snow-white extraction of salt may be had, whereas on the other side a sharper matter must penetrate gold, as you shall hear, when I shall speak more of it in its due place. Behold now, my friend, whatsoever thou art, what mind I bear towards thee, and how I am affected unto thee in my heart, the like I never durst look for from thee. Consider it well, how sincerely and faithfully I disclose unto thee all thy locks and bonds, whereby the whole philosophic wisdom is shut up, which hitherto never entreed into any man's thoughts, much less that ever it was practiced, or discovered, and nothing caused me to do it, but only God's infinite mercy, my goodwill and love toward my neighbor, which my predecessors have not done so completely, and was put off unto me to do it. Having thus separated your three mineral bodies, and ordered them into certain divisions, and put away the dregs, wherein they lie hid, then look to it, that you neglect none of it, by the diminishing of the quantity, which would prove a great fault to your work, and keep each in its own and due quantity, otherwise in your work you cannot come to a happy end. This is the thrift which so many have missed, and have written great volumes about it, for all what cometh from our philosophic gold, and hath divided itself into three parts, the same must be brought into one, without any loss and diminution, which is to enter into a new form again, and become a meliorated substance, and nothing of it must be done away, but only the feces terrae in which the glorious salt had its dwelling. Therefore do that I told you of, and I join the spirit with the body, bring the body also into a spirit, dissolve and exalt it into the highest spiritual power, in that dissolution the body turns to a spirit, and the spirit with the body uniteth and joineth into one substance, that after the exchanging of all manner of colors, there cometh a white body like snow, transcending all whitenesses. This is the greatest mystery of this world, about which among the learned and supposed wits, such disputings in the world have been, that a palpable thing, and a visible one could be reduced into its prima materia, and out of that may be made again a new clarified and better substance, by the bountiful nature leading the way thereunto. Thus you have made and brought into the world the Queen of Honor, and the firstborn daughter of philosophers, which after her due perfection is called the white elixir, of which great volumes are extant. Having brought your work thus far, then you have deserved to be received into the tubba of philosophers, and you get more art, wisdom, and understanding than all sophisters, which prate much of these mystical things, and yet know not the least thing of it. Therefore it is just that you should be preferred before them, and let them sit below thee in shame and disgrace, and in their darkness of misunderstanding, so long till nature doth enlighten them also. That you may bring and lead that new philosophic creature by the means nature afforded, unto the highest perfection, after which your heart with all her endeavors doth strive, then remember that neither man nor beast without a living soul can neither stir nor move, and as man here in this life, through temporal death loseth his soul, offering the same again unto the Almighty God, from whom he had it first, into his mercy and merits of Jesus Christ, where after the departure of the soul the dwelling, as the body of it, is left quite dead, which is buried in the ground, where it rotteth, and must return unto dust and ashes, being a due reward, which the fall of our first parents in paradise have deserved, and from them, as by an inheritance is falled upon us, after which putrefaction there are raised again on the great day new and clarified bodies, and the departed soul taketh her dwelling up again in that new body. After that, there is no more parting of body nor spirit, nor soul. But because the soul finding a clarified body, then with the same she mocketh an everlasting union, which neither devil nor death can destroy, nor disjoin any more, nor bring it into any corruption, but from henceforth into all eternity we are and shall be like unto the best creatures of God, which before our mortality and departure of the spirit, of the soul and body could never be. God help and grant unto us all a blessed resurrection. Amen. This high and mighty example having its foundation, not in humane thoughts, wit, or pride, nor in an ungrounded prating but in the great Creator's true word, which he hath revealed unto us through his servant and holy prophet Moses, doth inform you, what you ought to do further with your new begotten creature, that you may get a perfect birth without any defect, to the praise of the highest, the Father of lights and mercy, from whom we receive all perfect gifts which he graciously bestoweth on his children, for which we are not able to return sufficient thanks unto him. Now if you will proceed well in your work, then join the new body with his soul, which you formerly drew from, that the compound in its virtue be complete, and there be apparent in the end a plusquam perfection of it. Then is begotten the red King of glory in a fiery substance, and highly clarified body, exalted above all powers upon earth, from thence springeth the golden fountain. He that thinketh of it is renewed in all his members, and there risen wholly a new life, for the which God be praised for evermore. The augmentation of this huge treasure together with the fermentation thereof, for the transmutation of metals doubtless you have taken notice of exactly afore, where I wrote of gold how it must be handled, and what direction I have given you, thereunto, the same you must observe, for here is all one process from the middle to the end, the beginning only asketh alteration, by reason of the two distinct matters, for the which God be praised whom we beseech, to give us his grace and blessing, that we may make good use of this treasure, and after this life we may enter into the heavenly kingdom. The love to my neighbor hath moved me to write of these things, which in my long experience I found to be true, following the steps of bountiful nature, which made me a soothsayer in natural things, and I am assured, that if these my writings are made public after my death, and my other books sharing in the same fortune, they must undergo many censures. For some will extremely condemn me, delivering me unto Satan, because I have written so plainly. Others there will be, which will quite overthrow my writings, crying them out to be lies, superstition, and diabolical works, the like censure other illuminated men before me have undergone, which they feel to this day, for men are so incredulous in these points, that so mighty an operation should be found against all manner of infirmities, besides the transmutation of metals in so despicable a matter, over which the iron man with his espoused wife Venus, together with the deep glittering soul, is, and must have the predominancy, and with incredible profit it should by art be brought to such perfection. The art being great, and the matter so contemptible, it procureth the more doubt and unbelief. These unbelieving men I let understand only this notable example, whereby the eyes of those that are going unto Emmaus shall be opened, and thereby shall acknowledge that I have written no untruth, but disclosed such a truth very plainly. And note, that the ancient philosophers endeavored to describe the preparation of the stone under a notion of distilling of wine and the spirit thereof, which in their work are almost like one to another. 4:1. They taught out of the best wine to make a spirit, without any strange phlegmy, which to this day among vulgar artists must be, and is called the right and true mystical spirit of wine, whereas it may soon be proved, that this supposed spirit of wine containeth much invisible humidity, or phlegmy, in an insensible manner, which is nothing else, but its vegetable mercury, for the fiery spirit of wine is the true fire and soul of the wine. Every sulfur containeth secretly its original and principal mercury, vegetables in their kind, the animals in their kind, and the minerals also after their kind. 2. They taught how this spirit of wine must be separated in two distinct parts, namely, that this spirit of wine be poured upon white calcined tartar, and be drawn over in a gentle distillation. In this distillation is separated the secret and true spirit of wine from its vegetable mercury, as I faithfully informed you in my manuals. From the remaining earth they taught a salt be drawn, to be added to the rectified spirit, whereby it is fortified and strengthened in its substance, and at last the philosopher's stone should be generated. It is mightily against God's ordinance, that a vegetable should produce an animal, or an animal produce a mineral. By way of a parable, the practick part is held forth under the notion of this preparation. Now as they taught of the wine, so in like manner also by a short way may our gold be prepared, not the usual and common gold, and may be dissolved, divided, separated, and brought into its first principle. But you must note, that this dissolution and separation was never described plainly by any of the ancient philosophers which lived before me, and knew the magisterium, why I do it, the love to my neighbor hath moved me thereunto, which I bear from the center of my heart to all those, which overcome this mystery without falsehood, and shunning vices with a faithful heart, in a sincere knowledge and real piety. In the first place be informed, that our gold, so much spoken of hitherto, must never be taken for such gold by any of our disciples, which hath been melted, and fully digested by nature, for herein such error is committed, that men dilapidate all what they have, and lose both the beginning and end of all their works. Although not only from gold, but from other metals also this cladonium, and jewel may be had, in the preparation of it, particulariter much profit and advantage may be gotten in that, which concerneth man's health, as hath been formerly told. However, without the spirit of Mercury the universal of the world to be gotten merely from the body of soul, is impossible, and will be impossible, unless the Creator of all things produce another ordinance, to change and alter his creature after his own will. But as that is impossible, so it is impossible also, to deal against God's creature in that kind, as to find out that wholesome profit, which to your longing desire you expect. You may believe it for a truth, as Christ himself is, that the philosopher's stone would not be so strange, rare, and unknown a thing, it would be common to kings and potentates, if God would permit it to be made of gold alone, and the 3 jewels of infinite fixed virtues hid therein, could be had out of it. My intent is not in this present treatise to use any prolixity in writing. Those that are not quite blind, and have their eyes open, have enough already to attain unto real knowledge, and command both his mind and hands, not to pass by the weightiest, and esteem high things that are unworthy, and to fall with the blind into the pit, made for them. To those that are real in their desire for to attain unto art and wisdom, and intend to propagate the same without sophistication, and desire in reality to glory in that honorable truth, you may shew a real proof of it in this manner. I tell thee really for the highest truth, that you may dissolve our gold, naturally driven together, in a short way, to bring it to its prima materia, and is done thus: take the known mineral spirit, in which are mercury, sulfur, and salt is shut up, containing that philosophic mystical gold, pour that getatum upon white calcined tartar, these 2 contrary qualified matters will be rising. Let them stay together till their contention and strife be ended, and our gold hide itself invisibly. In the vegetable salt acre, or in the belly of tartar, lute a helmet to it, distill it at first gently in balm, then increase your fire, then Hermes his volatile bird will fly away from our gold in that sublimation, and sit on the highest pinnacles of the temple, looking about which way to betake himself, but soon is catched in the receiver, which must be pure and very dry. When you see this flight is but slow, then take the glass out of the balm, set it in ashes, increase your fire, then will she fly more nimbly. Keep that fire so long till all is come over, and her brother the red dragon, hiding his redness under a red color in a whitish fume, will begin to follow after his flying brother. Then cease with the fire, the drops being all fallen from the helmet, take it off, that which you find in the receiver, you are to keep as a treasure of mysteries. In this manner you have gotten wisdom, understanding, and skill, the fundamentals also, and desires of philosophers. By this short witty proof you learn and get that knowledge, how this water may be sought after, found, and lighted on, and is not to be esteemed a common water, but is that real infallible heavenly water, of which at the beginning I have written, and repeated the same the oftener, which in a spiritual manner from the heavens power is poured down upon earth, beginneth and accomplisheth the generation of all metals. For that reason the ancient philosophers called this water mercury, but I call it the spirit of Mercury. Now if you proceed right in this work, and you know what food and what drink to give to this bird, viz. sulfur and salt of metal, then you may attain unto the end of the great work, which is almost like unto the philosopher's great work, and you may get profit infinitely particulariter many ways. You must note, that this is not the true philosophic dissolution, but only one, which particulariter performeth strange matters, and is a speculum, in which our Mercury, our soul, and our lune is seen bleaking, which is a present confuting of unbelieving Thomases, discovering the blindness of ignorant men. The dissolution of the 3 principles I have described unto you formerly, which is of a slower pace, requiring time and patience, and an exact attention to make, or bring three into one, which work is done in itself per se, without mixing of any heterogeneal matter, only that which lieth hid in it, must do it. For the fountain of salvation is the illumination of the soul, and the salt of the clarified body, are all in that one thing, existent from one, two, or three, which must be brought and reduced to one, which is the golden virtue of all metals, exalted above all powers, together with the eagle and white body, which are nowhere together, but only in this one are found, and in that which is next kin unto it, which knowing philosophers always held in great esteem, but ignorant and blind men despised and disgraced the same. But those, whose eyes are once opened, love to stick unto much, covet to hide the matter from wicked men, and study day and night how the ignorant might be kept from it. Thus I close this third part. And before I begin the fourth part, concerning particularia, I must needs speak something of the philosophers vitriol, sulfur, and magnet. My friend, you must note, that this description I make now of the essence of vitriol riseth only upon trials made. The victorious triumph of the highest wisdom came by inheritance from the most ancient philosophers unto me, and comes now unto thee, wherein experimentally it's found, that there is a subterranean mineral salt, called vitriol, which for dyeing of clothes, and many other uses, men cannot well possibly be without it, for it carrieth on and eateth through, by reason of its sharpness, which is distinct from other salts, in respect of their qualities, for the mineral of this salt is strange, of a very hot and fiery quality, as apparent in its spirit, and containeth a twofold spirit, which is miraculum naturae, and is not found the like in other salts, and this salt is an hermaphrodite among other salts, it is white and red, even as you will have it, it hath an extraordinary medicinal quality, performing things in an incredible manner. This salt containeth a combustible sulfur, which is not in other salts. Therefore in metal line affairs touching their transmutation, it performeth more than others, because it helpeth not only to open some, but helpeth the generation of others, by reason of its innate heat. When vitriol is separated by means of fire, then its spirit at first comes in a white form, after that there comes from its earth a spirit of a red condition, staying in the earth, the salt being united with its expelled mercury and sulfur, can sharpen them, the remainder that stayeth behind, is a dead earth, of no efficacy. Let this suffice for your learning, and consider well what the Creator holds forth unto thee, in nature by this now kindled ternary, for as you find in vitriol's body three distinct things, as spirit, oil, and salt, even so you may expect from its own spirit again, which without the mingling of its oil, is driven from its matter, three distinct things, even as you did formerly from the body of vitriol, which deserveth very well the name of speculum sapientiae physicae, held forth purposely to man to view himself. For if you can separate this spirit of vitriol as it ought, then that affords again unto you three principles, out of which only, without any other addition, since the beginning of the world the philosopher's stone hath been made, from that you have to expect again a spirit of a white form, an oil of red quality, after these two a crystalline salt, these three being duly joined in their perfection, generate no less than the philosopher's great stone, for that white spirit is merely the philosopher's mercury, the red oil is the soul, and the salt is that true magnetic body, as I told you formerly. As from the spirit of vitriol is brought to light the red and white tincture, so from its oil there is made Venus her tincture, and in the center they are much distinct asunder, though they dwell in one body, possessing one lodge, it matters not, for the will of the Creator was so, to hide that mystery from unworthy men. Observe and consider it well, if so be you intend to be a true follower of philosophers. In this knowledge lieth hid an irrecoverable error, worldly wits cannot conceive of it. That the spirit of vitriol, and the remaining oil should be of so great distinction in their virtue. Touching their properties, the spirit being well dissolved, and brought into its three principles, gold and silver only can be made by it, and out of its oil only copper, which will be apparent in a proof made. The condition of the spirit of vitriol, and its remaining oil is this, that where there is copper and iron, the solar seed commonly is not far from it, and again where there is seed of gold at hand, copper and iron is not far from it, by reason of its attractive magnetic quality and love, which they, as tinging spirits in a visible manner continually bear one to another. Therefore Venus and Mars are penetrated and tinged with the superabounding tincture of gold, and in them there is found much more the root of the red tincture, than in gold itself, as I made further relation of it in my other books, unto which there belongeth also the Minera of vitriol, which goeth beyond these in many degrees, because its spirit is mere gold and rubedo, a crude undigested tincture, and in very truth, as God himself is indeed not found otherwise. But this spirit, as you heard, must be divided into certain distinct parts, as into a spirit, soul, and body. The spirit is the philosophic water, which though visibly parted asunder, yet can never be separated radically, because of their unavoidable affinity they bear, and have one to another, as it appeareth plainly, when afterward they are joined, the one in their mixture embraceth the other, even as a magnet draweth iron, but in ameliorated essence, better than they had before their dissolution. This is the thrift, beginning, middle, and end of the total philosophic wisdom, affording riches and health, and a long life. It may rather be said, and really proved, that this spirit is the essence of vitriol, because this spirit and oil do differ so much, and were never united radically, because the oil cometh after the spirit, each can be received apart. This fiery spirit may rather and more fitly be called an essence, sulfur, and substance of gold, and it is so, though it lieth lurking in vitriol as a spirit. This golden water, or spirit drawn from vitriol, contains again a sulfur and magnet. Its sulfur is the anima, an incombustible fire, the magnet is its own salt, which in the conjunction attracteth its sulfur and mercury, uniteth with the same, and are inseparable companions. First in a gentle heat is dissolved the undigested mercurial spirit, by this is further extracted, after a magnetic quality, the sulphureous anima. In that earth sticketh the salt, which is extracted also in a magnetic way by the mercurial spirit, so till the one is a magnet unto the other, bearing a magnetic love one to another, as such things, where the last together with the medium is drawn forth by the first, and are thereby generated, and thus take their beginning. In this separation and dissolution the spirit, or mercury is the first magnet, shewing its magnetic virtue toward the sulfur and soul, which it quasi-magnus attracteth. This spirit per modum distillationis being absolved and freed, sheweth again its magnetic power toward the salt, which it attracteth from the dead earth. After the spirit is separated from it, then the salt appeareth in its purity. If that process be further followed, and after a true order and measure the conjunction be undertaken, and the spirit and salt be set together into the philosophic furnace, then it appears again, how the heavenly spirit striveth in a magnetic way to attract its own salt. It dissolveth the same within XL days, bringeth it to an uniform water with itself, even as the salt hath been before its coagulation. In that destruction and dissolution appeareth the hugest blackness and eclipses, and darkness of the earth, that ever was seen. But in the exchange thereof a bright glittering whiteness appearing, then the case is altered, and the dissolved fluid waterish salt turns into a magnet, for in that dissolution it layeth hold on its own spirit, which is the spirit of mercury, attracteth the same powerfully like a magnet, hiding it under a form of a dry clear body, bringing the same by way of uniting into a deep coagulation and firm fixedness by means of a continued fire, and the certain degrees thereof. The king with the white crown being thus generated, and by execation of all humidities being brought to a fixed state, then is it nothing else, but earth and water, though the other elements be hid therein insensibly. However, both these keep the predominance, though the spirit turn to earth, and can never be seen in a watery form, and this double new-born body abideth still in its magnetic quality. For as soon as its departed soul is restored after its white fixation, then like a magnet it attracteth the same again, uniteth with it, then are they exalted to their highest tincture and rubedo, with a bright transparentness and clarity. Thus in brief you have a short relation of vitriols, sulfur, and magnet. Pray to God for grace, that you may conceive aright of it, put it then to good use, and be mindful of the poor and needy. At the closing I annex this briefly, to hold forth unto you a natural proof, that you presently fling and throw down the sophister, and take his scepter from him. Note, that from all metals, especially from Mars and Venus, which are very hard and almost fixed metals, of each a part can be made of vitriol. This is the reduction of a metal into a mineral, for minerals grow to metals, and metals were at first minerals, and so minerals are proxima materia of metals, but not prima. From these vitriols may be made, other reductions, namely a spirit is drawn from them by the virtue of fire. This spirit being driven over, then there is again a reduction of a mineral into its spiritual essence, and each spirit in its reduction keepeth a metalline property, but this spirit is not the prima materia. Who is now so gross and absurd, that should not be able to conceive further and believe, that by these reductions from one to the other there be a way to prima materia, and at last to the seed itself, both of metals and minerals, though there be no necessity to destroy metals, because their seed in the minerals is found openly fixed. O good God, what do these ignorant men think? Is not this a very easy, and children's like labor? The one begets the other, and the one cometh from the other. Is there not bread baked of corn, upon distinct works? But the world is blind, and will be so to the end of it. Thus much at this time, and commit thee to the protection of the Highest. End of the third part.